Lindisfarne itself is a really interesting place. That there's a kind of island quality to it, or a separation culturally and spiritually from the mainland, but also at certain points it is also part of the mainland. So there's a slightly kind of schizophrenic aspect to that, I think. Once you get out to the islands, and particularly the promontory that the castle is situated on, it's very, very exposed. It came down to Holy Island and it was incredibly atmospheric at the time. There was fog and the seal calls were very, very loud and evocative, and really mournful sounds. My name's Paul Rooney. I'm a sound and visual artist. Reading a little bit into the history of Lindisfarne Castle, I was struck by the presence of Madame Sudja, who's a cellist, who was actually engaged to Edward Hudson, who owned the castle, and did a lot of performances here. Apparently she was really well loved. She's an incredibly gregarious character, and she loved the landscape as well. She went out fishing with the islanders. There's lots of photographs of her around the place. Reading about her, it's a really interesting period where she was engaged to Hudson, then broke off the engagement. So there's a kind of really bittersweet element to her presence at the castle, I think, and I thought that would be a nice thing to try and incorporate into the work. While she was at the castle, that was the period that there was lots of kind of famous visitors, Lytton Strachey, Siegfried Sassoon and so on. So it's a really interesting time culturally as well. It was her cello playing and the sound of the seals that were the two sort of sparks really that made the work. I had a brainwave one day and I thought, why don't I contact a reputable sound recordist? And I thought of Chris Watson. I got in touch with him and he was really generous. He had some really fantastic quality recordings of the seal sounds and the wider landscapes. I was a fan of the cellist who's involved in the piece, Gita, and I asked her to mimic Chris's recording. So she's replicated with the cello all the aspects of the Lindisfarne landscape. So there's the seal calls, the bird sounds, the sound of the wind, the sort of general background drone of the landscape. The seal songs, there's a video projection at the end that translates them in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. So what the seals are saying is a sort of warning of climate catastrophe in a sense. Also, there's images of nature from the castle collection, but also I put a call out for nature writers or people who are interested in writing about nature to write some evocative accounts of the Holy Island landscape. And I've used those, or fragments of those, in the piece itself. I initially was a painter, so I knew the speaker grills would work as sort of rectangular visual elements within an abstract composition.
The installation with Paul Rooney has given us a really good chance to display the castle in a slightly different way, a slightly more creative way. The castle is really well suited to audio. The wind howls down the chimneys. It's a place that you know is very elemental.
So this year we're taking a different lens on the way that we're presenting the spaces in the castle and drawing on much of our collection to tell those stories through the characters that we know were here, and showing a little bit of a juxtaposition with how they might have viewed the castle in terms of being seen as a real source of inspiration by Sudja, for example, but also taking more of a critical look in terms of how it maybe wasn't the place of peace and tranquility that people might see it as.
The piece is partly about bringing the landscape into the room in a sense, but it's also a musical piece, so there's this backwards and forward movement between the natural and the man-made translation, and the whole piece in a way is about that translation from nature into art, into culture.